Chapter 148, Licking the Dog. Wait, she actually got into Xiaowei's carriage. After Zhang Xuning held the red mark in her palm and blew it for a long time, she finally reacted with hindsight, and couldn't help but feel excited, and looked up. The curtains on both sides of the carriage were thick and tightly pressed. Even if the cold wind is howling outside, it is difficult to lift a curtain. It is indeed Xiaowei's own carriage. The only light came from the carved sash behind him, shining on the snow fox fur covering the carriage, which not only had a kind of winter whiteness, but also revealed a bit of soft warmth. The folds on the small square table have been removed first, and not even a single piece of shredded paper has been left, only the faint aroma of book and ink is still wafting in the air. In the left-hand corner is a stack of books. Zhang Xuning didn't dare to turn it over, but only took a closer look. It seemed that they were all Buddhist scriptures and Taoist scriptures, and the most obvious one was the Lenjian Sutra. Probably put it in the car, and from time to time I will flip through the book, which doesn't look very new. Reading so many Buddhist scriptures, pure heart, and few desires, no wonder although people are in the court, they have never married in their previous lives, and they have never heard of any concubines in the family. Uninteresting, boring. When she saw the 3 words Lenjian Sutra, she couldn't help but roll her eyes, and for a while she left behind the surprise that she actually got into Xiaowei's carriage. After all, Xiaowei is her husband, and when her student encounters an accident, Xiaowei borrows a carriage for her, which doesn't seem to be a big deal. All the way to the palace gate, it was already dusk. Dayakan asked her to get out of the car. Zhang Xuning thanked him, because he knew that this young man looked introverted and silent, but a good arrow in his hand was deadly, and he had seen it more than once, so he didn't dare to reach out to help his hand, so he jumped out of the car by himself. In the midst of fasting, everyone had already arrived. Zhang Xuning, who was delayed in the road, was undoubtedly the last. Xiao Shu sat in the middle of several companions, wearing a graceful apricot yellow palace dress, holding a delicate wrong gold hand stove in one hand and holding a chess piece in the other, playing against Chen Shi opposite. In the past, she was as bright as a peony. But when Zhang Xuning came in from the porch, she saw it, but she felt that there seemed to be a little indelible gloom hidden between her carefully depicted eyebrows and eyes, so she remembered the good performances staged in the Kuogong mansion these days, and she couldn't help but feel a sigh in her heart. Chen Shi saw her first, the color in her eyes flashed slightly, and she said with a smile, "I also said when the second girl Zhang will get better when she is sick, and whether she will not come again today, I didn't expect it to arrive just after reading. Looking at the second girl Jiang's complexion, she will raise it very well." Zhang Xuning didn't seem to understand the meaning hidden in the words, and replied with a smile, "Isn't it? Although people are sick at home, they don't have to go to the school of this Lishize, and listen to the noisy teachers all day long, and the life is too pleasant. Not only did I not lose weight, but I was afraid that I would gain 2 pounds at home." Zhou Baoying was originally lying on the edge of the chessboard and staring at it, eager to stretch out her 2 hands to help Xiao Shu and Chen Shi play chess. As soon as she saw Zhang Xuning come in, and heard her say this, her cheeks puffed up, and she said pitifully and enviously, "Sister Ning must have eaten a lot of delicious things at home, right? Alas, Sister Ning is sick, and Sister Yao is also sick at home and can't come. How can I be so able to eat, grow so strong, and never get sick since I was a child? How good it would be to hide under the covers and eat on this cold day." Everyone was speechless. Zhang Xuning glanced at it, only to find that there was indeed one person missing, so she couldn't help but pick, "Miss Yao is not here either." On both sides of the chessboard are Xiao Shu and Chen Shi, next to them is Zhou Baoying who is watching chess, sitting in the corner drinking tea is Yu Yu, who has never dealt with her, only looking at her with that sneering gaze, standing in front of the window staring at the shape of the pane, frowning and thinking about Feng Miao. I don't know what Feng Shui problems are pondering. The timid Yao Rongrong took a needle and thread and sat opposite Yu Yu, embroidering a handkerchief. The most demure was Zhang Suiwei, holding a book in her hand, sitting behind the vase with red plums in half of the people, raising her eyes to look at her, and then burying her head to continue reading. Today, there should be 9 companions. But even Zhang Suining herself, there is still one person missing. It is Yao Shi, the daughter of the secretary of the ministry, who has had a lot of trouble with Zhang Suining. It was only at this time that Xiao Shu raised her eyes lightly, as if she saw her doubts, and reminded her in a somewhat mocking tone, "Didn't the younger sister of the Yao family go home early because of Wen Ziyi's mother's affairs?" Second Miss Zhang seems to be looking for her at this moment. It is really a noble person who forgets things. Who doesn't know that Zhang Suining had a dispute with Yao Shi because of Zhang Shat? At first, Yao Shi wanted to quit his family. Later, when Yu Ruyi was in the case, he saw Zhang Shaky in Sinning Palace, but he changed his mind and didn't want to quit his family. Unexpectedly, at this time, Zhang Sha took the initiative to withdraw from his relatives, although the wording was very cautious, but Yao regretted that he had never had a good face, but he only felt that this person did not know what to do. The enmity with Zhang Suining was knotted to death. Now that Zhang Shagwan of the former dynasty has been promoted to a higher level, he is quite favored by the saints, and he is also quite prestigious among the people. If Yao Shi himself is here, I don't know if he will feel a pain in his face. Zhang Suining listened to Xiao Shu's words a little interestingly, although she wondered how she could be sick, but thinking about this person's bad fate, she didn't bother to investigate the reason, so she only said, "It's really a little disappointed, but the coming days are long, and there will always be a time to see it." Xiao Shu looked at her tranquil demeanor, and inexplicably remembered Xiao Dingfei. I heard that her elder brother had sent most of the treasures given by the saint to Jiang's mansion not long ago to curry favor with Zhang Suining, and then remembered that her father and younger brother had seen Zhang Suining when they were leaving, and they already sneered in their hearts. She pinched the fingers of the chess pieces with a slight force, forcibly suppressed the fire accumulated over the past few days, and smiled casually. "Since the second girl Zhang has arrived, and we are all together, let's go to Sinning and Cunning Second Palaces to say hello to the Queen Mother and the Queen Mother." It has been 5 days since the beginning of spring, but the cold wind is still howling in the north. When a group of 8 people came out of Yang's Hizai, they were all covered with thick cloaks, or carrying a hand cage or a hand stove, and walked under the Vermilion Palace wall. The solemn and magnificent court has an overly regular crampedness. Seeing the rugged and natural mountains and rivers outside, experiencing thrilling adventures, and seeing this glazed tile and carved beams again, Zhang Suining couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief in her heart, and she was a little distracted between her steps. Yu Yu has been proud of the spring breeze these days. One is that the silver stalks of Ren's salt field in his hand have soared. Seeing that the situation was very good, she had specially sent someone to Shudi, named Bafu, to send someone to help and take care of Yu Fangyan, but in fact, she was optimistic about her and the situation of Ren's salt farm, so that she could secretly get more dividends, and the silver shares in her hand could be sold at a good price. The second is that Zhang Suining has no luck looking for her, and her luck is better again, and she was able to report her name for the selection of the princess by the King of Linzi. I heard that His Royal Highness the King of Linzi loves chess, calligraphy, and painting, and is an elegant person. On the day of the selection, she only needs to show her hand well, and then spend a lot of money to hire someone to dress up beautifully. Not necessarily because she can't get Shenju's blue eyes and become a princess in one step. At this time, when I looked back and saw Zhang Suining's expression, it was not as bright and scorching as before, and I couldn't help but feel a little superior in my heart. In the past, everyone knew that Zhang Xuning was covered by Yanji Hoshaizi Yanlin, but the home mansion collapsed last year. Later, His Royal Highness the King of Linzi knew her again, and showed his care for her between words, but unfortunately now that Shen Zhu has chosen a concubine, it is Zhang Suiwei who has been reported by Zhang Mansion, and she has no Zhang Xuning's share at all. Her Royal Highness the eldest princess does favor Zhang Xuning, but now it is different from the past. Shen Zai will soon go to totter and kiss, even if she can protect Zhang Xuning, how many days can she protect her? Zhang Xuning at the moment is not a grasshopper after autumn, can't she jump for a few days? Yu Iskar forgot the pain, completely forgot the lesson she had learned from Zhang Xuning in the past, sighed weirdly, and said, "This is to see the Queen Mother, why bother with the sad face of the second girl Zhang Xuning?" Zhang Xuning came back to look at her. Yu put on a brightly colored cloak and laughed. The Queen Mother Lafayette heard the news of the return of the prince a few days ago, and she fainted with excitement and joy. Now there is no one to protect you, and I heard that the Prince of Dingfei is extremely filial to the Queen Mother, and he often comes to the palace to ask for peace these days, and his temper is not very good. If he sees the posture of the second girl Zhang, She originally meant to be sarcastic about Zhang Xuning. After all, she didn't know the inside story of the Quagong mansion and the matter related to Dingfei Shizi, so her tone was particularly scathing. But who would have thought that the first one to change his face was Xiao Shu? Zhang Xuning hadn't figured out how to reply to her yet, when she looked up and saw a group of people turning out in the direction of Sinaing Palace in front of her. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Xiao Dingfei has indeed often entered the palace to visit the Empress Dowager Xiao in recent days. After all, this old woman heard that he was still alive, and she was so surprised that she fainted. Of course he had to go to the old witch from time to time to shake it, and by the way, he mixed with a few princes and nobles who could enter and leave the palace, and also beat his relationship in the capital. At this moment, he has already invited an in Sinaing Palace, and is coming out with King Linzi, King Yanping, and others. This is good, and Xiao Shu and others just collided. Xiao Shu is a pearl in Yang Zi's companion reading. Everyone thinks she is looking at her, and now she is going to meet the Queen Mother, so naturally she walks in front of everyone. Xiao Dingfei saw her at a glance. At the moment, the well-defined chin was raised, and it was an arrogant and contemptuous posture that did not put Xiao Shu in his eyes, and he stepped forward with his hands behind his back, snorted lightly, and looked at Xiao Shu's luxurious palace clothes. A pheasant can also bluff people into a phoenix if he inserts a few picked-up hairs. Everyone on his eyes side was a little stunned for a while. One didn't expect this Dingfei prince to utter such foul language, and the other didn't expect him to be so rude to Xiao Shu, who is also of the Xiao family's bloodline. Yu's heart almost immediately shuddered. Xiao Shu's face was already pale, since she gained favoritism from the emperor's side. Xiao Dingfei's behavior in the Quagong mansion has become more and more arrogant, and he has already been lawless, trampling the face of the Xiao family directly to the ground. Even if she was a beautiful woman in the past, she was helpless when she met this kind of person, and she seemed to be overstretched. In front of these many people, of course she couldn't back down, and as soon as she opened her mouth, she had to scold, "It's okay for you to talk nonsense elsewhere, but now that the palace is forbidden, you dare to speak wildly." But before he could finish speaking, Xiao Dingfei's eyes lit up sharply. Turned out to be a mistake, and suddenly saw Zhang Xuning behind him. Suddenly shouted in surprise and joy, "Second girl!" Suddenly, all eyes converged on Zhang Xuning. Zhang Xuning's scalp was tingling, the corners of her mouth twitched slightly, and she said in her heart, "It's not good." Sure enough, the next moment, Xiao Dingfei, the troublemaker, had already walked directly in front of her, looking elated, as if a wanderer in a foreign land had met his relatives, where could he still see the slightest bit of his previous arrogance. With his hand raised, he saluted her. He said, "I didn't expect to meet second Miss Zhang in the palace, but it's really fate." The eyes of everyone around him have become incredible, including Shen Zhu, the king of Linzi on the other side, and the young king of Yanping. Their eyes can't help but widen, as if they have seen some rare wonder in the world. Zhang Xuning remembered Xie Wei's warning. She stiffly retracted her smile by 7 points, showing a little coldness, and after returning the salute, she said, "The prince gave him a generous gift, but he received it in vain. I am really afraid, and I ask the prince to take it back another day." Xiao Dingfei's handsome face suddenly collapsed. He couldn't believe what she said, and he also noticed her caution and alienation, and secretly cursed in his heart, "I don't know which bastard secretly interfered with him from hugging Zhang Xuning's thigh," but his face instantly changed to a pitiful expression. He said quietly, "The second girl doesn't like to take care of me anymore." The voice is not loud, hiding a little resentment, although the figure is tall, but standing in front of Zhang Xuning, he is very obedient, just like an obedient puppy, and he is a different person from when he faced Xiao Shu just now. Zhang Xuning's whole person was instantly bad. King Yanping almost dropped his jaw to the ground. Even Shen Zhu, the king of Linzi, couldn't help but change his scrutinizing gaze, looking at Xiao Dingfei and Zhang Xuning. On Yang's his eyes side, Yu Yu was dumbfounded. How could it be? I just mocked Zhang Xuning, and now it's different from the past. After leaving Yanlin, she didn't choose Princess Linzi, and even the eldest princess of Liang, who had always protected her misdeeds, would go to kiss her. She originally thought that from now on, Zhang Xuning would have to hold her tail and snort. But who would have thought that Xiao Dingfei, the prince of Dinghuo, who had been in the capital recently, would come to her again? This woman! This woman! What kind of demagogic tricks are there?